A lot of us carry the same quiet hope in the background that life will finally shift for the better. Sometimes that hope gets especially loud around New Year because it feels like a natural reset. But the pattern doesn't belong only to January. It happens in spring and September, after a birthday, after a breakup, after a scary doctor's visit, after a hard conversation at work. We reach a point where we think, okay, now I'm really going to change. And for a short time, it feels convincing. We set goals, we imagine a new version of ourselves, we try to push forward. Then weeks pass, a few months pass, and when we look at our life, too much still feels familiar. The job that drains us, the relationship that hurts, the constant pressure around money, and that heavy thought in the background. Why am I still here? In this video, I want to show you what people rarely talk about. Real external change starts inside, and when change doesn't happen, it usually has reasons. Those reasons are often invisible, but they are very real. When we find them and remove them, the path becomes much clearer. This is part of a series because we'll move from more visible, surface-level reasons to deeper ones over time. I'm a psychologist, and I'll share what I've seen again and again in real people's lives. Before we start, if this topic matters to you, give this video a like and subscribe so you don't miss the next parts. Point 1. What keeps you from getting to the life you want? Before we talk about goals and habits, I want you to picture something. Picture your life as a block of stone. Day by day, with every thought, every choice, every reaction, you are shaping it. You are the sculptor, and your mind is the tool. Your actions are the small, daily cuts that slowly create the shape of your life. Some people let their mind carve fear. Others carve courage. Some people let old stories decide the shape. Others learn to choose new stories and build something new. And here is the part most people miss. In childhood, your mind was not a tool in your hands yet. In the beginning, your mind was more like the sculpture itself. It was shaped by adults, by the environment, and by the situations you lived through. You made conclusions about yourself, about life, about other people, and those conclusions left an imprint. They became settings in your system. That's why the first step is not write your thoughts down. The first step is realizing this is not who I am. This is what was shaped in me. And once you see that, everything becomes more hopeful. Because if these settings were created at some point, they can be changed. You can roll back old settings that don't help you anymore, like low self-confidence, harsh self-criticism, constant self-blame, and build the settings you actually need for the life you want to create. Now let's make it practical. Your mind talks all day. Even when your mouth is quiet, your inner voice is busy. It might sound like, this will never work. They don't like me. I'm not good enough. What if I fail? The problem is that most people treat this voice as truth. They don't question it. They follow it automatically, and then they wonder why they feel anxious, small, stuck, or exhausted. So instead of treating those thoughts as reality, start seeing them as phrases on a screen, something that appears, something you can notice, something that often comes from the past. Very often, these phrases were learned. You didn't invent them from nothing. You picked them up from how people spoke to you, from the roles you had to play, from the way you were treated, and from the conclusions you made during painful moments like rejection, abandonment, or other traumatic experiences. So here's what you do next. You start collecting your default phrases. Write down what your mind says when you make a mistake. Write down what it says when you feel behind. Write down what it says when you try something new and feel fear. And then you compare. Compare your current beliefs with the beliefs of the person you want to become. How does that person see themselves? How do they see the world? How do they see other people? Share some of your answers in the comments. Your choices don't come from your goals. They come from your deep beliefs. If your beliefs say, I'm unsafe, I'm not enough, people will reject me, Mistakes mean I'm a failure, then your system will choose protection, not growth, even if you consciously want a new life. This is why it helps to study the inner world of the type of person you want to become. If you know people like that, talk to them. Ask them how they think when things go wrong. Ask what they tell themselves after a mistake. Ask how they interpret failure. If you don't know such people personally, read biographies or watch interviews where you can actually see their mindset, their inner beliefs, the way they saw themselves, the world, and other people while they were building their life. Many successful people have a much more supportive picture of reality. They don't punish themselves for mistakes because for them, a mistake is part of the path. They don't define themselves through, I failed or I succeeded. They keep moving, learning, adjusting. And once you start seeing that difference clearly, you stop thinking, this is just me. You start thinking, this is an old setting, and that means it can be changed. Point 2. Why big promises don't work, and what actually creates real change. When people want to change their life, they often start with big promises. I'll wake up early from Monday. I'll start working out from New Year. I'll stop scrolling so much. I'll finally do everything differently. And then it doesn't happen. Or it happens for a short time and then everything collapses back into the old pattern. What usually comes next is not just disappointment. People start making conclusions about themselves. They tell themselves they are the kind of person who can't keep promises, the kind of person who never follows through, the kind of person who always fails. And these conclusions often sound very familiar. They are painfully close to the criticism many people heard in childhood, and sometimes still hear today from close people. So the old voice comes back, and it uses the situation as proof. See? This is who you are. But very often, the real reason is different. If you keep reaching for your phone, if you keep distracting yourself, if you keep postponing the thing you said you would do, it usually means there is something inside you that you don't want to feel. There are emotions you're running from: discomfort, anxiety, fear, loneliness, sadness, shame, pressure. Sometimes it's something simple, exhaustion, or the feeling that you have too much on your plate. So instead of only asking, why can't I make myself do it? Ask a better question. What am I trying not to feel right now? Write it down. Name it clearly to finally see what is actually happening. Because if you don't see the emotion, you keep treating the phone as the problem, and you miss what's really pulling the strings. And then do the same comparison you did in point 1. Think about the person you want to become. How do they feel inside when life is hard? How do they relate to discomfort? How do they treat themselves when things don't go perfectly? How do they relate to the world and other people when they are under pressure? This matters because many people carry a fantasy that a successful person has no problems, no stress, no fear, and everything comes easily. But that's not real. Difficulties are part of life. Challenges are part of the path. They don't define whether you are a good person or a worthy person. Even in the most protected place you can imagine, inside a mother's body, a baby still reacts to stress if the mother is stressed. The baby feels the chemistry of the mother's emotions. Hormones and neurotransmitters pass through the same system. So the idea of a life with zero stress never really existed. So the goal is to live through struggle without abandoning yourself, to feel discomfort without escaping into old habits, to stay on your side when things are messy. If you've already promised yourself change many times and nothing really changed, your self-trust has taken a hit. And your brain notices that. After enough broken promises, it stops taking your intentions seriously. Your wishes and plans start to sound like background noise, something it has heard before, something it expects you to drop again. So it ignores it. In the next video, we'll start with how to rebuild trust with yourself so Your brain begins to treat your intentions as real direction, something it can follow, instead of something it can ignore. And subscribe to the channel if you want to listen to this podcast.